For the first 5 parts, we've gotten these beautiful men whose abilities range from bizarre breathing techniques to manifesting ghosts to beat the living shit out of their enemies, each of them being different from the last. Jonathan being a kind and strong gentleman, Joseph's exciting and trickster ways, Jotaro's badassery, the goofy and humble nature of Josuke, and Giorno being soft and kind like Jonathan while having the ferocity of Dio. But that's until we meet jolynecujoh, our first and potentially last female JoJo. However, what makes Jolyne stand out from the rest is her relationship with her father, Jotaro. The relationship these two have at the beginning of the story is really shaky, with Jolyne resenting her father for not being in her life, hating the fact that other things were more important than his own wife and daughter, which then leads to Jolyne doing stuff like joining a biker gang, stealing, and a bunch of other stuff that would get anyone into trouble, only to seek some sort of attention out of her father in hopes of finding out if he cares or not.
I want you to know, you were always incredibly important to me.
Jolyne realizes that her father actually did care, and that's only a portion of what makes part 6 so great. You get to see how Araki's writing has evolved over time, and what was once a series in which its characters have really amazing personalities, they've gone on to have more personal, in-depth stories, with part 6 having Jolyne's story about her relationship with her father while trying to free herself from the generational war that Dio and Jonathan started all those years ago. And this idea of being free is also the basis of Stone Ocean, and we can see that through none other than Dio's only friend, Father Pucci. Enrico Pucci is a really interesting character. He has always been the type of person to stick to his faith very closely, and it's in that very faith that leaves him vulnerable to the beautiful and imposing figure that is Dio, creating a fanatic out of Pucci. He's also the type of man who's quiet, calm, and collected, and possesses a more wicked side which allows him to go to extreme lengths in order to achieve what he wants, which is why Dio entrusted Pucci to take over and execute his plan if anything were to happen to him, in turn Pucci becoming Dio's trustworthy friend. The plan that Dio has for humanity is to achieve what he calls heaven, a state of mind where you're able to see your future, the good and the bad that happens in your entire life, and to be able to come to terms with that. And it's this very idea that Pucci latches onto when there's a specific moment he couldn't have foreseen. Pucci and another character by the name Weather Report are revealed to be brothers. However, both were separated at birth by a woman whose baby had already passed away, leading to her to take Weather from the Pucci family and replacing him with a dead baby, which in turn leads Pucci's parents to believe that his brother had died at birth. And it isn't until years later at a confessional that Pucci encounters the very same woman who stole his little brother from his family. And it's here where Pucci gets even more infatuated with finding out what is the truth about fate. Also, by this point, Pucci also has a little sister by the name of Perla, and since fate is very prominent in JoJo's, she encounters Weather Report. And since the two are oblivious to the fact that they're both brother and sister, they start dating. And when Pucci finds out that Perla and Weather Report are seeing each other, the actions he takes calls for some of the most messed up things to happen to these people. You see, when Pucci learns this, he decides to go to a man who's part of a detective agency. Pucci then tells this man to break the two up, but what Pucci doesn't realize is that this man hides a dark secret. And when this man finds out that Weather's mother was married to a black man, we find out that this man is part of the KKK. And then things get a whole lot worse. They attack Weather, leaving him for dead. and Perla, devastated about the death of someone she loved, she jumps off the cliff taking her own life, only for Weather to still be alive but too late to save her. And now Pucci, in his pain and sorrow, desires more than anything to understand, why do people meet? What is true happiness? Was it his fault for his sister's death? Was it fated to happen? All these things pop into Pucci's mind as he holds his sister lifeless in his arms. And the more he thinks about it, the more he breaks, the more he wants to see Dio. And the same can be said for Hermes trying to be free from the guilt of not being able to protect her older sister Gloria from the malicious Sports Max, with Foo Fighters also seeking that freedom to be able to be more than just an organism. I think the goal Araki was trying to achieve for part 6 was not only to write a badass ending that culminates the story he started in part 1, but to also write more relatable characters, to write characters that we can know more about on a personal level. And I think that's what makes this part so beautiful, cause we can see Araki's evolution and how far he has come as an artist, with part 6 being the height of his creativity at the time he finished it. However, even after everything I mentioned about the characters being amazing in part 6, Araki of course shines even more with the stand battles that occur throughout the entirety of the part, where Araki combines the JoJo formula with a strong female trio to be the center stage. Some of my favorite fights being Jolyne against Guess, the trio going up against the deadly debt collector Marilyn Manson, or the zero gravity fight with Lang Wrangler, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the hand-to-hand combat that I was about to see, with Araki finding a balance between characters using their stands and their own physical bodies to beat their enemies, with one of my favorite fights being Jolyne going up against the prison guard Westwood and his stand Planet Waves. The start of this fight is rather interesting because it's not only Westwood's stand that needs to be taken into account here, but also the stand Survivor. Survivor is a stand that makes people angry, and it does this by weakly sending a tiny electric current that stimulates the limbic system of the brain, which then awakens the fighting spirit, and with that kicks off the fight between Westwood and Jolyne. And it's an amazing and brutal fight that involves kicks and punches, Jolyne using her manipulation of strings in different ways to try to defeat Westwood, and then Planet Waves appears. Planet Waves is a stand that's really bizarre. It takes small meteorites from space and draws them to Westwood in order for him to use as projectiles to injure his opponent. And it's here where the stakes get even higher, and since Jolyne can unravel her own body and heal herself, Araki's able to play into the brutality that comes with fighting, to the point Jolyne has to use her strength to dig into Westwood's toenail to try and gain an advantage. But the fight that I consider the best in part 6 is when we finally enter the lethal stand Sea Moon. Up until this point, Jolyne and the crew escape prison, and during this time, we get really great stand battles like Bohemian Rhapsody that can make works of fiction come to life, Sky High can use rods to suck the body heat out of people, Underworld can drag memories from the ground forcing others to relive them. However, when Sea Moon pops up, the danger escalates in a way that hasn't been seen in the part thus far. Sea Moon is this twisted, evolved version of Whitesnake, Pucci's original stand. The way Araki chose to start this fight is to show the group moving onto Pucci's location by car, until things around them get a little strange. The car starts to slow down, and at one point the car completely stops, and when the entire squad finally understands what's going on, all we can see are cars being flipped and people violently hitting the pavement. And in the next few moments we realize the ground itself is rising, leaving the group with no other option than to climb upward, and by the time they reach the top, Sea Moon appears behind them with its only motive to eliminate the entire crew, starting with Jolyne. And with that being said, we get to see one of its terrifying abilities to turn anything it attacks inside out, with its main ability being able to manipulate gravity. And this fight is nerve-wracking because Jolyne is constantly trying to avoid any fatal blows from Sea Moon, like her chest or her head. One wrong move and it's all over, and despair slowly starts to creep in as you realize the longer this fight goes, the worse the injuries get. The worse the injuries get, the closer Jolyne and the crew are closer to death. And that last statement cannot be any more true when Made in Heaven finally awakens. JoJo's is a series that's known for its many main antagonists to possess abilities that deal with time. Cars trying to surpass time by becoming a perfect immortal being, Dio stopping time with the world, Kira using Killer Queen's ability bites the dust to create a time loop, and Diavolo using King Crimson to completely erase it. However, Made in Heaven accelerates it, and the way Araki uses the world around the characters as this is happening, as we can see the pictures get more horrifying as we go on. And what makes this stand so scary as well is that it counters Jotaro's Star Platinum, only allowing him to stop time only half of what he used to. And it's here where we finally understand that the Joestars aren't going to come out of this alive, with the next few moments confirming our suspicions. Pucci kills off the entire crew, and with Jolyne sacrificing herself to save Emporio being one of the most beautiful moments in an anime. And now with the Joestars out of the way, Made in Heaven is able to create a new universe, a world where everyone can see their entire life and come to accept that, only for Pucci to be thwarted by Jolyne using Weather Report's stand to finish off Pucci, with Pucci's final words being, "Humans will not be able to see the future as it happens. They will not be able to face their destinies. Remember that resolution is the way to happiness." And the part ending with Jolyne and the crew living in a new universe where they live better lives. But they're not the same people as we knew from the beginning of the story. And while I felt sad about that, I also felt happy that after all they fought for, they can finally live the lives they wanted without stands, without Dio. It's also here where I realized that JoJo's, aside from the memes, from the weird and wacky stuff it's known for, it's a sincere story about trying to achieve happiness in our lives. And that's an amazing message that part 6 tells me and you. It's why I think so many people enjoy this part so much, including myself. It's why JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean is a beautiful JoJo part. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe, and hit the bell notification if you want to get notified for whenever I do upload new videos. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.